Many thanks for choosing us. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has resigned, delivering his exit speech at the number 10 Downing Street. Mr. Johnson said, "I'm sad to give up the best job in the world, but that's a break. I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world," the Prime Minister says. Let's bring you a recap of that announcement he made a while ago.
That party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place. So I want to say to the millions of people who voted for us in 2019, many of them voting Conservative for the first time, thank you for that incredible mandate. The biggest Conservative majority since 1987, the biggest share of the vote since 1979. And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person was not just because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019. And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest exit from lockdown, and in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And let me say now to the people of Ukraine that I know that we in the UK will continue to back your fight for freedom for as long as it takes. And at the same time, in this country, we've been pushing forward a vast program of investment in infrastructure and skills and technology, the biggest in a century, because if I have one insight into human beings, it is that genius and talent and enthusiasm and imagination are evenly distributed throughout the population, but opportunity is not. And that's why we must keep leveling up.
My colleague Daniel Dazi, who is now with the BBC, joins us live with more. Daniel, good to see you. What's the mood first at the BBC following this announcement?
Aisha, very busy, a lot's being reported. I think the key conversations have been, first of all, how this happened. As you heard Mr. Johnson say, he won a very resounding victory in the last election. And up until his troubles began in government, there was actually talk that he could be the longest serving prime minister in British history. So those two key questions have been how it happened and what happens now, which is even more paramount. Again, as you heard him say, what he has said is that he will hold on to the power until there's a new Conservative leader, which could mean that he will stay in office till October. And also, there will be a new timetable for the selection of a Conservative leader who would then become Prime Minister of the country. So a lot of conversations, really.
How about town? How are people reacting to this, Daniel?
Well, if you look at the reactions on social media, and I must say I've been monitoring trends from Nigeria, Ghana, across the world, and here in the UK, there seems to be a sense of acceptance of that decision. You must know that the UK was very polarized around the decision for Boris Johnson to resign. Just before the last no confidence vote, which was called by members of his own party in Parliament, which he survived, it was quite split among the British public. He still had a lot of support, but there was still a resounding number of people who were calling for him to resign. So yes, it's still split reactions, but largely there's a general acceptance, there's a sense of belief that Mr. Johnson has brought his time as Prime Minister to an end.
We are aware that when 38 of his ministers resigned, they did not state categorically why they resigned. but they indicated there was bad leadership and bad governance. What exactly are the reasons for Boris Johnson's resignation?
Well, that you're really asking about where it all went wrong. And there are a number of reasons. I'll take you through 2 or 3 of them for want of time. The foremost reason that has triggered what we now know about 59 MPs, at least 59 MPs who have resigned, and various members of his government. And the foremost reason is the Chris Pincher affair. On Wednesday, the 29th of June, the Member of Parliament, Chris Pincher, who was at the time the Deputy Chief Whip of Parliament, of the Conservative side of Parliament, went to a private members club in London. And in his own words, he drank too much and he embarrassed himself. What really happened is that he was accused of groping 2 men. When that happened, he immediately went on to resign. That should have been the end. However, Mr. Johnson's office came out to say, look, he's done the right thing, he's resigned, that will be the end of the matter. And then his office was asked a question, a number of his office and a number of ministers were asked the question, whether or not Mr. Johnson knew of this behavior of Mr. Pincher before this incident. The response that came from men at the time was Mr. Johnson did not know. Soon after that, one Lord MacDonald, actually was a senior civil servant, he actually wrote a letter to Parliament saying that Mr. Johnson's office had lied and that as far
Daniel Bazi is my colleague who is now with the BBC. We'll try and get him back. Daniel, are you back?
For the Chris Pincher affair, Boris Johnson's office initially said he did not know that he had these formal complaints against him. These specific allegations were made against him. Later, his office admitted that he did indeed know. That is what triggered the wave of resignations, which included his finance minister, his health minister, and a number of key members of his government. But even before that, remember I said earlier that he had faced a no confidence vote from within his party in Parliament. That was triggered by the famous lockdown parties, which we now call Partygate. It emerged that Mr. Johnson and a number of key members of his government attended parties during the lockdown era in 2020. There was an investigation by senior civil servant Sue Gray. What happened then was that 126 fines were charged of 83 people, which included Boris Johnson and his chancellor, or his finance minister, his chancellor of the Exchequer, or the finance minister, Rishi Sunak. Now, there's also been issues around cost of living, increase in taxes. They say that there was a general lack of focus or ideas with this government. In October 2021, there was also the Owen Patterson row. But these are the issues that brought us to this.
So, Daniel, we're told that he's resigned as leader of his party and not as prime minister. What does that mean?
So the way the system works here in the UK, when you go to the polls for an election, you don't directly elect a president or a prime minister. You elect your member of parliament. Okay. The party that has the majority in parliament then forms the government. That party often has a de facto leader that is selected by the members of that party, starting from the members of parliament and then to the wide party generally. So yes, he has resigned as leader of the party, but he's holding on to the position of prime minister until the Conservative Party selects a new leader who will then take over from him. That is why it is being said that now a similar thing was done by Theresa May when she was resigning for Boris Johnson to come in, and David Cameron as well. That is why it's being said that Mr. Johnson would possibly stay in power until October, which is when the Conservative Party has a conference, and by that time, by all means, the party will have a new leader. But we do not know how long that will take specifically until the timetable for the selection of new leader is put out next week.
What are the names coming up as replacement for Boris Johnson?
Very, very interesting names have been coming up, Aisha. The first name that I can tell you about would be the former cabinet minister, Jeremy Hunt. He stood against Boris Johnson in the last leadership election for the Conservative Party, Sajid Javid, who was his health minister, one of the people who resigned very recently. Michael Gove has been mentioned, his ex-chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has been mentioned, his foreign secretary, Liz Truss, defense secretary, Ben Wallace. His new, when Rishi Sunak resigned, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Finance Minister, was Nadeem Zahawi. Soon, 2 days after he became Chancellor of the Exchequer, he actually called on Mr. Johnson to resign. His name has also come up. We know that Suella Braverman, who is a Conservative backbencher, has already put up a name that she would want to run for the new Conservative leadership position. And so there are a number of names. It's going to be an interesting couple of months coming up as they go through the series of votes that finally end up with a new Conservative leader who will then become the Prime Minister. It will then be the prerogative of the Conservative leader to either call for a general election like Boris Johnson did when he became Prime Minister, or they will continue and finish the term and then go back to the British people for a mandate.
My colleague Daniel Daze reporting from the BBC. So who are the likely persons to replace Boris Johnson? Let's take you through some of the possible candidates. And right there on your screen, there are a lot of names popping up. We'll share them with you and tell you their backgrounds. Earlier, Daniel mentioned his health minister, who also resigned as part of the 38 ministers who have resigned in Boris Johnson's government. So this is Nadeem Zahawi. He's a current chancellor, and he cemented his reputation as a safe pair of hands when he took on the role of vaccines minister in the pandemic and garnered much credit for the UK's successful rollout. It was, he said, the most important job I will ever do, unquote, although it set the stage for a promotion to the cabinet as education secretary. Another promotion to chancellor following Sunak's resignation did not stop him from joining a group of ministers 24 hours later to tell Mr. Johnson it was time to go. So he's one of the 38 ministers who have resigned. There is more of those names coming up as possible replacement for Boris Johnson, for the job that Boris Johnson himself describes as the most important job in the world. And he says he's very sad. He's very sad resigning from that position. Definitely, there were no reasons by these ministers who resigned, but they indicated that there was bad leadership, there was bad governance. Boris Johnson himself has corroborated to those issues, and he wishes the country well. In his statement, he assured the people that he was going to ensure that the fight for Ukraine to be a safe country will continue, though he is resigning as leader of his party. The next name on who the people who are possibly going to succeed or take the position of Boris Johnson, we have Suella Braverman. And even before it became clear that Boris Johnson would resign, Suella Braverman boldly declared her intention to stand as a candidate, but also remains in the cabinet as Attorney General, the government's senior law officer. She set out her pitch for the leadership as the enemy of what she called woke rubbish. One of the original lights of the Brexit-focused European research group, she was a passionate Brexiter and has always been a staunch supporter of Mr. Johnson. And you have her on your screen. She's one of the names that are popping up. There's also Penny Mordaunt. Is a former magician's assistant. Penny has a track record of pulling off extraordinary feats. In political terms, she already pulled a rabbit out of a hat in 2019 when she made history by becoming UK's first female defense secretary, a national feat for a naval reservist who had already served as armed forces minister under David Cameron. But Miss Mordaunt is probably best known outside Westminster for her appearance on, so that's it over there. It's one of the names that is popping up. as a replacement. Rishi Sunak is also one of the names. He was once seen by some as a sparkling possibility for a future Conservative leader, but the last few months has seen his reputation dented following a controversy over his wife's tax affairs, and not long after that, he received a fine for breaching lockdown rules. He only became an MP in 2015 for the North Yorkshire constituency of Richmond. Few outside of Westminster had heard him, but he was Chancellor of the Exchequer by February 2020. And you have Steve Baker also coming up, another leading light in the Brexiter movement. If not a household name, Steve has made it known that colleagues have implored him to stand in the leadership. He has been seen as a brutally effective organizer, an MP who behind the scenes harried Mr. Johnson's predecessor, Theresa May, and so she finally resigned. He was an RAF engineer and became MP for High Wycombe in the 2010 general elections. Let's come back to Ghana. Engagement with the IMF team enters day 2 today. Apart from government economic team, the IMF team is also expected to meet other stakeholders, including the Bank of Ghana and labor unions. The meeting with the Finance Ministry began yesterday and is continuing this afternoon. My colleague Blessed Soga, stationed at the Finance Ministry, he gave this account earlier.
See right from the background, this is where we are today, the Ministry of Finance, where we are expecting that the delegation from the International Monetary Fund would, as part of their engagements, continue meetings with officials of the ministry this morning. Yesterday, upon arrival, per the schedule that JoyNews has intercepted, we know that, for instance, the Office of the Vice President was engaged as part of the preparatory meetings for today's main agenda. It appears that from the schedule, today is the D-Day, where, of course, the IMF officials will be starting off by delving into our data. So they're starting off, first of all, with the issues of data reconciliation by, first of all, understanding our economic outlook. Once they have a firm grasp of what it is that's on our books, then from there, we're setting that, of course, the team can then go on and engage other stakeholders before that final plan from the ministry in terms of the letter of intent from the government of Ghana is released. Now, I'll just take you through briefly what we know may happen today. In fact, that meeting, as we are speaking, is scheduled to happen at 10 o'clock. So any moment from now, or even as we are speaking now, there are signs and indications that officials of the ministry are preparing, just awaiting the arrival of the IMF delegation so the conversations can start. It appears that top on that agenda is the first of all the issue of our economic outlook. The IMF team, per the schedule that we have, will be interested in knowing what the government projections are and what strictly the targets are for our government, and then move into the area of our expenditure. It appears that that's a key concern for the IMF team, a reason for which obviously the government is turning to the IMF. So they'll start off by assessing some of the revenue measures and expenditure cut measures that we're taking just by ourselves as we roll on to this austerity measure.
Well, in Parliament, Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu is fighting back accusations that his side should accept blame for Ghana's latest return to the IMF. Top government and MPP functionaries have said the NDC's opposition to the e-levy and the consequent failure of the tax handle to realize the projected amount forced government to seek a bailout from IMF. But speaking to journalists in Parliament, Haruna Iddrisu says his side will not accept any responsibility with regards to the economy's current predicament.
Now, they should stop any attempt to shift blame. E-levy remains an unpopular tax instrument, and therefore the fact that it passed does not mean it had the support or has the support of the minority. We rejected it because it was unpopular. We shared it with you. We rejected it because it smacks of double taxation. Indeed, in many jurisdictions, it will not stand constitutional acceptability. I cannot see why I take my income tax, pay an income on my tax, and in sending 2,000 of it to my mother on an electronic platform, I still have to pay tax on it. So our position on it have not changed. Therefore, the essence of this press briefing, they must take full responsibility and focus on expenditure reduction, particularly focusing on social intervention whilst they reduce their opulent expenditure. What is of greater concern to the NDC minority is that they arrogantly rejected every reasonable and constructive suggestion from us and from other respected economists and Ghanaians on working together to improve the economy. What they must learn to live with is that once the Ghanaian people voted for a hung parliament, it meant that the days of impositions are over.
Meanwhile, Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwul says the Finance Minister should not be hanged for the current economic crisis that has forced Ghana to seek a bailout from the IMF. Ken Ofori-Atta had consistently stressed Ghana will never return to the IMF. He had held on that belief until the president last week directed him to begin negotiations for an IMF bailout. Many, including the NDC minority in Parliament, had demanded that he resigns or be sacked. But speaking on PM Express last night, his colleague Defense Minister stressed a lot changed in the last few days that a Finance Minister could not have anticipated.
It affected us in the fact that programs that maybe you want to do, especially programs that for the security, you may not be able to get all the resources that you need because everybody has to at least
do you have any specific examples?
I'll give you that. Expect that you should do this kind of thing. But you see, when you have an enhanced program like ensuring that your balance of payments are right, you ensure that growth is, you increase growth, you ensure that you cut expenditure, you ensure that the wasteful expenditure is cut off from it, you ensure that at the end of the day, there's credibility within the governance and economic system. All these programs put together, at the end, is just to one thing: keeping the nation together and ensuring that by a certain time frame, the outlook of the country becomes positive. All sectors, including that of the security, must know that they must lower the expectation a little bit. Programs that can be postponed, you have to. Programs that you believe that you can do your work without, you have to. All ministers must be on their feet. So, for example, you have to make sure that wasteful expenditure is cut off and everything is being done. But there's some of the expenditure that we have to do to ensure that we save our country. You and me, or this average Ghanaian, wants to wake up knowing that the country is safe. He has a country that he can move freely. So those operational expenditure will still have to go ahead as a country. You know, Operation Calm Life, Operation Kundagu, Operation Cow Leg, Operation Cow Feed. If there's a problem in a particular place, you cannot say soldiers or police should not go. You have to find money along the line to go. You cannot say you're not going to feed soldiers. You have to feed them. We feed 12,000 soldiers on a daily basis. You have to feed them because they are all spread around different places. Same with police, same with fire service. If there's a fire burning in Kantamanto, you cannot say fire service must not go. They must get fuel and they must be able to move. There must be water, there must be a fire hydrant, all these kind of things that need to be done, they have to be done. But there are a lot of programs, for example, what we use our goods and services for, maybe painting of this ministry, or trying to do little things, or maybe buying a lot of internet that you may not need too much, or maybe making a lot of phone calls that you should not make. You have to cut down a lot of those kind of things. That's what I'm trying to say, that the non-essential things, we all have to cut down, including the security agencies, including the security ministries. Things are not very normal. But I believe, like I said, it's a phase. I believe that Ghana,
Let's now go to Parliament and speak with parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante. Kweku, it's day 2 of negotiations with the IMF team. The minority has indicated it's not happy with the blame game being played by government. What further reactions are you picking up?
So Aisha, it is more heat turning up on the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to step aside or face the censure. You could probably liken it to what is going on right now in the UK, where the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, as usual, has just been forced out because of some resignations. The minority, this is about the 5th time I'm speaking to leading members of the NDC minority in Parliament who are saying that Ken Ofori-Atta should either walk away honorably or they will turn the heat on him by using the vote of censure. Honorable ranking member on the Works and Housing Committee, Vincent Oppong Samoa, spoke to me just about the time government announced they were seeking an IMF bailout, that the finance minister should resign. This week, ranking member on the finance committee has also been speaking. We've just now been hearing from Dr. Kwabena Donkor, a former power minister, one of the leading NDC MPs in the House, who resigned regarding similar circumstances in 2015 when the power situation had not stabilized. He said he knows very well Ken Ofori-Atta has achieved a lot in the public sector, in the private sector. But when it comes to the public sector, he has failed. He has not lived up to expectations. He had said insistently that Ghana was not going to seek an IMF bailout. Now that government is seeking some support from the IMF, it is time for him to step aside and let a new team lead.
Kwekwa Asante is our correspondent in Parliament, and he's bringing us reactions from Parliament. Kwekwa, are you still there? What else is happening in Parliament today?
The Information Minister is expected to answer questions. The Information Minister is expected to answer questions on the right to information and a host of other things, because we're told some caucus meetings were happening behind the scenes, but more members are now trooping into the House. We're expecting that the Speaker will gavel the House into session some moments now. But what we know is that the NDC minority are going to take a tougher stance on Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and other members of the economic management team if they do not resign or the president do not sack them. The kind of comments I'm getting and the chatter I'm picking up is that they are saying for political reasons, the president may not be able to sack ministers like Ken Ofori-Atta and others because of the significance they hold in the NPP and also the kind of relations they have with the president. And so if they do not do the honorable thing and resign to free the president's hands to take some of the decisions on its own, then they will vote a censure against them. Aisha.
Macaulay Kwekwa Asante is in Parliament for us. We definitely will bring you more from Parliament in our subsequent bulletins. Now, students at the basic school level will soon get access to approved textbooks for their courses after nearly 3 years since a new curriculum was introduced. The Ministry of Education will soon begin to distribute these books to the various schools as it takes stock of the first batch of printed tests ahead of the September deadline. Michael Ashali has more in this report.
Textbooks are a must-have for students, but since the curriculum for basic schools was revised some 3 years ago, students in Ghana, especially at the basic school level, have been without textbooks. In May 2022, the Ministry of Education gave all publishers 120 days to finish printing textbooks for onward distribution to students. The Minister for Education, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, has been inspecting the progress of the printing.
Here today is for us to see a Ghanaian company doing a fantastic job. Look at the quality of the print. Appointed time publishers are a printing company. They are doing a fantastic job for the government. And here we have the science books being printed for the primary schools. And other printers are also doing the other textbooks. But I'm excited to see that they've done this on schedule. In fact, they've done ahead of schedule so that the books can start hitting the classrooms. You have the truck standing there, the books are there, they're going to load it, and the first consignment will be leaving this place. And that's what makes me excited.
With more than 2 months to the deadline given to the publishers, the minister has taken stock of some of the reading materials for teaching and learning. He believes the textbooks will be ready before the September deadline. So in the communique was 120 days for them to deliver. Do I get a sense they are going to deliver ahead of that time?
For appointed time, they have. They have actually done a marvelous job. I was not expecting it this time. They've done it. They've done ahead of schedule. And I hope other printers will follow suit.
What about the other printers? Have you gone there?
Go there. I had to come here first. You know, their name is prophetic, appointed time. So at the appointed time, we came. At the appointed time, they printed. Yes. And at the appointed time, they are distributing.
Appointed Printing House is responsible for printing textbooks for integrated science. According to its logistics manager, Obed Hagan, more than 70,000 books are ready and will be delivered to the Education Ministry.
Currently, as you can see, we have over 70,000, and these ones are ready and they are going out today. They are currently being loaded, so over 70,000.
Do we know where the books are going to?
Well, we are taking them to the Education Office, the Accra Regional Office.
But in total, how many books are we printing?
We are
for the science.
For the science, I think it's over 300,000.
Okay.
Yes.
For students, this might come as refreshing. Meanwhile, the ministry is yet to decide when these books will finally be made available to students. For Joy News, Michael Ashali.
We can now speak with Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Publishers, Ernest Oppong, who joins us via Zoom. Mr. Oppong, quickly, let's understand when this distribution will begin.
Thank you, Aisha. As the ministry instructed publishers to print and deliver the textbooks within 21 days. So far, the deadline is supposed to be in the second week of September. Yeah, and as you just shown your viewers, some of the, I think the first publisher has had his books printed. I think 50% has been printed by appointed time, which is ahead of time. So we at the Ghana Publishers Association is expecting that all the publishers will have the textbooks printed even before the middle of September, which is the deadline for the 120 days.
But what has been the challenge all this while?
I think this procurement process has taken much time. The Ministry of Education announced this tender over 2 years now, and publishers have been waiting for the ministry to award the contract, which was done in May 2022. Yeah, so now that the contract has been awarded, I think publishers and printers will facilitate the whole process and get them to schools. Yeah, so publishers had been ready all this while. Yeah, but I think this is the right time for the contract to proceed successfully.
One of the issues that has been given as a part of the delay is that the publishers do not have the capacity to produce the number of textbooks that we need. Do you have the capacity?
Definitely. Maybe a little education to our viewers. Publishers shape the contents of the book and printers print. Yeah, this is not the first time the government is ceding 100% printing to our local printers. It happened in 2016-2017 when government ceded 100% local printing. Yeah, and this is another opportunity for printers to print. And in 2016-2017, the printers of the country demonstrated to government and to the public that they have the capacity to print. Beyond that date, printers have also invested in ultra-modern printing machines, yeah, to facilitate quicker production process. Yeah, so now, sitting at the Publishers Association, I can assure the public that our local printers have the capacity to print any number of quantities that the Ministry of Education...
So you are sure to meet the September deadline?
Yes, please. I'm sure that they will meet the deadline.
I'm grateful for your time. Ernest Oppong is Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Publishers. Let's take a break on Joy News today. When we return, we'll bring you the very latest coming from the world of business.
Hello and welcome. Let's do business now with me, Beverly Broom. After 14 years of shutdown, Coastal Grove Limited, a wholly owned Ghanaian organic orange juice processing factory in the central region, has been recommissioned by the German corporation on behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development through its Invest for Jobs program. Here's more from the ceremony.
The event also offered the management of Coastal Groves Limited and GIZ Ghana the platform to further engage on the outlook of the factory and organic agriculture in Ghana. Delivering his speech at the event, Head of Sustainable Economic Development GIZ Ghana, Gerald Gosgoski, pointed out the importance of such projects which has a high impact on employment, market opportunities, environmental sustainability, and above all improve the business ecosystem. The agricultural sector in Ghana, he explained, serves as a primary source of employment, livelihood and food security for most people in rural communities. According to Mr. Gogowski, the project is envisioned to create 200 direct jobs and over 1,000 indirect jobs while improving the working conditions of the people who are currently engaged by the company.
Coastal Groves was faced with some challenges which led to its shutdown for about 14 years. As we are much aware, the role of the agricultural sector in Ghana cannot be overemphasized, as it serves as the primary source of employment, livelihood and food security. Against this backdrop, in September 2020, in line with the objectives of Invest for Jobs, GIZ partnered with Coastal Groves to help bring the company back to life. There is a limited amount of jobs in the public sector, and I think this limit is reached. So there are some that are leaving their positions and are going to be replaced, but there is no big further growth. But in the private sector, there is a lot of potential. And that means that we need the small entrepreneurs that have an idea, that have a vision, and that are ready to implement it.
Managing Director of the Coastal Groves Limited, Daniel Dankwa, expressed his gratitude to GIZ and the German federal government. He said the shutdown of the factory did not only affect him and his family, but also the employees and farmers who provided them with the raw materials for production.
Away from that, the Youth Challenge International, through its Hair Starts program, is set to train and offer business services to about 10,000 young women across Ghana, Tanzania, and Uganda. The intervention is to help improve the economic well-being of women who are marginalized.
Challenge International Hair Start program aims to build an enabling environment for social innovation and women's social enterprise development. Over the 7 years period, the Youth Challenge International and Global Affairs Canada will invest $6 million Canadian and the capacity of 135 volunteers to support women in Ghana. Speaking at the Catalyst Fund Awards ceremony to honor 10 girls, the country project lead Osmond Wisdom Kwanzaa said YCI is partnering government to address the gender inequality gap and youth unemployment.
Help us innovate the future is an initiative designed by Youth Challenge International in partnership with leading local organizations, NOSAC, and Border Technical University, with the goal to foster and create innovative solutions for a more equitable and prosperous economy within Ghana, Tanzania, and Uganda. YCI has an aim to build an enabling environment for social innovation and women's social enterprise development, while increasing awareness of and support for social ventures. The theme for this event is Women Economic Empowerment through Social Entrepreneurship. YCI utilizes an economic empowerment approach as an entry point to addressing gender-based violence, protecting women's human rights, and promoting leadership among young women.
The Northern Regional Minister, Shani Alhassan Shaibu, said the initiative has come at the right time and urged the beneficiaries to put to good use the money given them.
That's all for business now. We have more business coming up on Marketplace at 1 p.m. and also on myjoyonline.com/business. Have a good afternoon.
Time now for sports, and I'm here representing Muftaw Nabila. The Chief Executive Officer of Asante Kotoko, Nanaya Amponsa, says winning the Premier League cannot be described as success because it has been done many times. For him, his vision is to create a path for many others to continue after he exits the club.
The feeling is good, but we are not over ourselves. I mean, it's not the first time Kotoko is winning the league. We are the record holders in terms of league triumphs. And as I've always said, many have come before me and done it. So it's not really what my management bases our plan on. Our project is based on putting the pieces together, building a solid foundation on which others will come and continue. As for league trophies, as I said, some have come and won it, even Champions League. Some have come before us and won it. But our ambition is to lay down foundations on which people will come and continue from there. We want to stop the culture of always new management coming in and starting from ground zero. That is what we seek to stop. We want to continue to build the blocks, build a good edifice, which will stand the test of time.
And that will be all for sports this afternoon. Time now for showbiz. Unfortunately, Becky is unavailable today. I'm in her shoes. Musician Reggie Rockstone says the only time he ever got disrespected as an artist was by his people, Ghanaians, affectionately called Hip Life Grandpapa, an originator of Hip Life by some industry players and music fans. Some Ghanaians claim he never did anything remarkable for the music industry. He told Andy Dusty on Daybreak Hits.
Do you feel disrespected that you are named?
No,
at the time you had already blessed us with your creative side?
No, not at all. I didn't feel disrespected. You know, they telling their story. I mean, the only disrespect I ever got was from my own people. So no, I mean, it's Ghanaians after how many years turned around and said that I wasn't nothing and I didn't do nothing, if you remember, and the media went with it. So it's ironic that you asked me this because the only people that ever disrespected Reggie Rockstone was my own people. Nigerians always showed me respect. Every time I go to Nigeria, show me respect. On a holistic, general view, I'm glad that they have a documentary. I am glad that we got mentioned. Yes, they have some some of the information was wrong, but you know what they say. You got to tell your own stories. And so they have opened the door now for our story to be told. And people like Brother Hinejan has hit me up. I'm getting calls from all over the world. People saying, listen, Reggie, you got to tell your story. You got to tell your story. And when we tell our story, they will understand the real, the real picture. They see the real picture of how everything came to be. And I'm just happy to be alive to see this. But no, I never felt any disrespect but from my people. Never. It's always been my people that have downed me, my people who have doubted me. Never. Nigeria, from the airport, I'm treated like a king. Straight talk. I know people are going to feel the way about this, but it's a fact. So much so that I invented a word called G8. Remember this? So,
The Reggie Rackstone. Now, following his first appearance at the just-ended 2022 Afro Nation concert in Portugal, singer Camido, who has now gained international fame, has been sharing his exciting moments. Speaking to Joy Prime's KMJ on Showbiz Now, Camido claimed it was an experience to perform on the stage.
First of all, I think it's more than like just performance. Whole experience of like meeting people, networking, like people that you've always heard about on maybe on the BBC or, you know, international radio or TV or media or anything, and getting the opportunity to be in the same space with these people, connecting and top of it all, performing. I feel like it was over like 30 to 40 to even 50,000 people. Like it was lots of came out there, you know, and being on that stage, first of all, like that was my first time having that type of stage settings, and even how the running order, like things went. It was my first time, but that was like one hell of like an experience, and I'm just happy to have gone through that. At least now I know how these things operate, so like, you know, I'm just prepping myself for like, you know, bigger.
Camido, the ending showbiz. And that's how we wrap up news today. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Log on to myjoyonline.com. You'll get more of the news and all the updates of our developing stories. Enjoy the rest of our programs.